Hey gang, it's Squill, and here we are, my final Adventure Time seasonal top 10 list. I'ma be real with you guys, out of all my top 10 lists I've done, this is probably the one with my least favorite group of episodes. Don't get me wrong, I still like all of these, but due to the nature of season 10 only having 13 episodes, I only really love the top 7-ish. So don't take that as an indictment of Season 10's overall quality. If I were to take the first 13 episodes of almost any other season, I'd probably have the same problem. Season 9 was just lucky because it happened to have elements and 4 other episodes I really loved. So with that, here are my top 10 Adventure Time Season 10 episodes. At number 10, we have Always Bemo Closing. I'm not always into Bemo episodes, but Always Bemo Closing manages to win me over. I think what sells it for me is the pairing of Bemo and Ice King. These two are just so fun and wholesome to watch together. It's like if their subplot in Present Porpoise is Missing was a full episode. I love Finn and Jake's reaction to hearing that Bemo and Ice King are working together, it's so wholesome. They get some good jokes out of the general awkwardness of the situation. Love seeing Ice King try to eat the pie in this scene. I even like the juxtaposition to Bemo and Ice King stumbling upon Gumbald's home in the back half of the episode. There's a very ominous tone to this scene that I like quite a bit. Unfortunately, I don't think this climax really works at all. This fight scene between Finn, Jake, and the baby Finns just isn't very interesting or dynamic. And they're defeated so easily that it just kinda makes Gumbald look pathetic. But still, this doesn't erase the goodwill built up by this episode before that point. Always Bemo Closing isn't one of my favorites, but it's a fun little episode that I don't mind returning to every so often. At number 9, we have Gumbaldia. Recently, I reviewed the penultimate Owl House episode, For the Future, an episode that, while still really good, feels more like setup for the finale than a complete story on its own. I bring this up because I feel kinda similarly towards this episode. Since it's mostly here to set up for the finale, it is a little lacking in its own identity. But there are still definitely things to appreciate about this episode. For one, I love seeing Finn acknowledge his character growth, how he's much more reliant now on kick-butt diplomacy than actual violence. It's just a nice wholesome moment that really rounds out Finn's character development. And I love Jake being Finn's hat for this episode, it's so cute. I really like this fight scene between Finn and Fern, seeing Fern try and mask his jealousy for Finn with confidence. It's a dynamic I wish we got more of in Season 10. It's also cool getting to explore Gumbald's kingdom, even if, again, I wish Season 10 had more of this. And despite how little payoff it got, this villain roll call at the end is undeniably awesome. Love this Ice King joke at the end. Gumbaldia is definitely less than the sum of its parts, however said parts are good enough to put it on the list regardless. At number 8, we have Jake the Starchild. I rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 recently. Just felt like bringing that up for no reason. I hear a lot of mixed opinions on Jake the Starchild. I lean more towards the positive side of things, but I definitely get the hate for this episode. Warden Ampersand, while not bad, isn't a particularly great villain. His name is funny, but otherwise isn't a memorable or intimidating force. And in Season 10 especially, the deadbeat father trope is just so overdone. But that being said, I still really like this episode as a last hurrah for Jake. Seeing him do one last heroic thing for his kids is awesome. Jake is more often than not pushed into the supporting role, so it's great to see him get his own big character journey so close to the finale. I also love the visuals in this episode. It reminds me a lot of Everything's Jake from Season 6, creating an entire world out of primarily one color. Though I think this episode might actually look better than Everything's Jake. Jake the Starchild is not a perfect episode. There were definitely better ways they could have resolved the Jake origin storyline. But for what it is, I still think it's a very strong ending to Jake's arc. And as flawed as it is, I'd rather live in a world where this episode exists than a world where it doesn't. At number 7, we have Bonnabel Bubblegum. I think what I find to be the most impressive thing about Bonnabel Bubblegum is the way it ties together so many little tidbits from PB's past. Her dating Mr. Cream Puff, the taffy trees, Gumbald's cabin, not to mention the creation of the Candy Kingdom and Candy Citizens. But this episode isn't all just references. I actually think it works really well as an origin story for PB. Knowing that, aside from Nettie, PB was basically a loner for most of her childhood really recontextualizes her character. And the moment she does create people to accompany her, they almost immediately betray her. So she chooses to make most of her candy people as stupid as possible so they don't do the same. The fact that we're 10 seasons in and still uncovering new facets of PB's character really goes to show just how complex she is. My only real criticism with this episode is that Gumball poisoning Lolly and Jiggly is kinda dumb. Like, first off, why would he do this in the first place? They were already on his side. Second, why are they not mad at him after they're back to normal? And third, what's even the point of the scene in the first place if it's literally never brought up again? Literally just have some of the dum-dum juice land on them too, and the story's basically the same. But whatever, Bonnabel Bubblegum is still a great origin story for PB and a great episode. At number 6, we have Reign of Fire. Reign of Fire is a Cuckoo Bananas Tree Trunks episode, and I am here for it. It's an utterly ridiculous series of vignettes that actually ends up rounding out Tree Trunks' character. Something about 18-year-old Tree Trunks having the exact same voice as present-day Tree Trunks will never not get a laugh out of me. As is just how quickly she and Randy get married, and then immediately break up. The second segment is my favorite of the three. Something about Tree Trunks being a pirate is absolutely terrifying to me. This story is just the right amount of stupid for me to find it hilarious. Of course Tree Trunks abandons her ship for a man she just met. Of course Danny's brother is fake. Of course it was all a ploy to get Tree Trunks to leave her post. Of course she blows up the ship at the end. No more tight men. The third story just further proves that Wyatt is the worst character in this show. He is so pathetic, I hate him. Also, shout out to this beautifully somber moment near the beginning of Tree Trunks reflecting upon her life. For such an inherently silly story, there's a surprising amount of heart here. The perfect send-off to a character like Tree Trunks. At number 5, we have Temple of Mars. I love the Finn and Jermaine team up in Temple of Mars. Previous Jermaine episodes mostly focused on his dynamic with Jake. But his shy and down-to-earth personality contrasts beautifully against Finn's heroic and confident persona. Makes me wish he joined Finn and Jake on more adventures. I absolutely love this parallel to Sons of Mars. It's also great getting to check up on Cane Man, who's as delightful as ever. And Betty, who makes for a fun addition to Finn and Jermaine's team. Never in a million years would I have expected Jermaine and Betty, of all characters, to have a profound conversation, but I'm so glad they did. Speaking of which, I absolutely love the subversion of Betty's arc here. The episode tries so hard to convince you that Betty is starting to get better, so the fact that she took away the Ron lesson makes for a really cool subversion, and it does a great job foreshadowing the finale. In a series filled with super abrupt endings, this is probably the king of them all. Temple of Mars is a great character-driven episode that also manages to feel very big and exciting. At number 4, we have Blananas. I love the mundanity of Blananas. I think it was a good call getting one last chill hangout episode 4 episodes away from the big finale. I love just how proud Finn is of his lame joke. It's clear that he doesn't actually care this much and is only fixated on it as a distraction from missing Jake. I think it was a good decision getting Ice King involved here. I love the dynamic between him and Finn here, the fact that they're just casual friends now. I also really like the art style used for the inside of the demonic wishing eye, as well as the lore reveal that it takes a piece of your soul every time you use it. There's a bit of meta commentary here too about the show coming close to an end. How even though the show may be coming to an end, we can still keep it alive through fan creations. Though I'll admit, this line about not getting nostalgic didn't really hold up the best. Though it was definitely a poignant moment when the episode first aired. I think Blananas does an excellent job being the last quote-unquote fun episode of Adventure Time. At number 3, we have The Wild Hunt. What I like most about The Wild Hunt is the portrayal of Finn's trauma. How much of a toll killing Fern has really taken on Finn. It's jarring seeing a character like Finn, who typically revels in slaying monsters and being a hero, just get so out of it. It's an excellent manifestation of his grief and loss. This episode also gives us some more Huntress Wizard, which is awesome. It feels like a pretty natural continuation of their dynamic from Flute Spell. These two have so much chemistry with each other, and I would have loved to see them officially get together at some point. The fight scene between Finn, Huntress Wizard, and the Grumbo is easily one of the better action sequences in the series run. There's some awesome dynamic camera angles here. And I think Finn's solution here is very clever, projecting Fern onto Huntress Wizard instead of the Grumbo. All in all, The Wild Hunt is an excellent follow-up to 3 Buckets, and one of the strongest season premieres overall. Also, shoutouts to this episode for being the only one in which Gumball is slightly threatening. At number 2, we have The First Investigation. Finn and Jake are absolutely adorable in The First Investigation. I love just how excited they are to potentially meet their ghost parents, it's so wholesome. And in general, I think this is a really creative episode premise. Combining a time travel story with a paranormal ghost plot is such a fun idea. It makes for some cool visual moments, as well as some great callbacks to earlier in the episode. Probably my favorite moment in the episode is Jake witnessing his own birth. Jake's reaction here is hilarious, and it's good foreshadowing for the end of the episode. Jake in general is definitely the MVP of the episode. His over-the-top reactions to everything is just priceless. His transformation in this scene is super well designed and animated. But I also like Finn trying to play detective here, trying to fulfill a similar role to Joshua. This scene here is super wholesome too. This ending cliffhanger was super intriguing watching the episode for the first time. An exciting ending to the best normal length episode of season 10. Normally I'd save the honorable mentions for the end of the video, but because it's pretty obvious what number 1's gonna be already, and I want this video to end on a positive note, I'm going to list them here. At number 13, we have Son of Rat Bear. Not a fan of this one. The plot is kinda dumb, it's filled with bad rapping, and as a finale to Flame Princess's arc, it's pretty weak all things considered. I think it's pretty lame how they made rap her entire character at this point, especially when she's not that great at it. At number 12, we have Marcy and Hudson. Slow Dance is a great song, but otherwise, it's a pretty tedious episode that needlessly dumbs down Hudson's character and shoehorns Cousin Chiclay in for the sake of conflict. And at number 11, we have 17. I'm pretty mixed on this one overall. I think there's some good jokes, I love Finn's overconfidence, and I think the Fern reveal is handled pretty well. But I don't understand what Gumball's plan is here at all, and it's pretty lame just how easily he backs down. And my favorite Adventure Time Season 10 episode is none other than Come Along With Me. Come Along With Me is not a perfect finale. The Gumball stuff is super unsatisfying. Fern's arc is a little rushed. Certain characters don't get enough to do. The Candy Kingdom haters from Gumbaldia gets like no payoff. And as a whole, it definitely feels like 2 separate episodes awkwardly stitched together. But for everything I dislike about Come Along With Me, there are like 20 things I adore about it. I love the framing device, getting to see Ooh 1,000 years in the future with these charming new characters. There are tons of awesome references to previous episodes. The nightmare sequence has some awesome visuals. I love Golb as this chaotic force of nature. It's satisfying seeing so many characters come together to fight Golb. The Bubblegum kiss, even if it was outdone in Obsidian, is still one of the most iconic and important moments in the series. The treehouse being destroyed, as depressing as it is a huge moment that's given an appropriate amount of weight. Seeing Ice King revert back to Simon and reunite with Betty is a satisfying moment the show was building to. Finn, Simon, and Betty being trapped in Golb is super stressful and intense. Betty sacrificing herself to keep Simon safe is the perfect way to wrap up her arc. Despite his arc being as flawed as it is, Fern's death is still super impactful. And I love the decision to plant him where the treehouse used to be. But easily the best moment in the episode for me is Time Adventure. Not only is the song itself beautiful, but seeing all these characters come together to rescue Finn is just so powerful. A lot of people complain that Finn didn't get enough to do in Come Along With Me, and while I totally understand and sympathize with that criticism, I actually really love the fact that Finn is the one who needs to be saved this time. I think it's really beautiful and shows that Finn doesn't need to be the hero all the time, he can rely on other people. This scene gets me teary-eyed almost every time I watch it. I absolutely adore it. And of course, the montage at the end with the island song sung by Musical is absolutely wonderful. It's just a sweet little epilogue where we get to see where all of our characters ended up. If anything, I think Come Along With Me is the perfect metaphor for Adventure Time itself. It's definitely flawed, I could nitpick the hell out of it if I wanted to, but the good stuff is just so insanely good that it highly outweighs the stuff I dislike. I loved Come Along With Me when it aired, and I still love it now. It's the best season 10 episode and an amazing, if flawed, finale. And after over a year, that puts a wrap on my Adventure Time series-wide retrospective. These videos were a ton of fun to make, and I'd like to thank everyone and anyone who supported me while making these. I still have plans to talk more about Adventure Time, other shows, and I can't wait to talk about Fiona and Cake once that comes out, whenever it does. So thanks for watching, and Squill, out.